Hello, welcome to today's webinar, Creating Transformational Customer Experiences with Data. My name is Jamie Reynolds. I am in marketing here at Localytics, and if you will, I'm today's producer of the event. And I have the honor of welcoming our two speakers for the program, Raj and Julie. Next slide, please.
Not changing.
So Raj is the CEO and co-founder of Localytics, the host for today's event. If you're not familiar with Localytics, we are a lifecycle engagement platform for web and mobile apps. And he's joined today by Julie Osk, VP, Principal Analyst at Forrester Research, our guest speaker. Julie works with e-business and channel strategy professionals, helping them with their mobile strategies and take advantage of the mobile opportunity that is available in today's modern marketing world. And speaking of mobile, our agenda on the next slide starts with mobile, because mobile is the opportunity that has really given us as marketers the ability to create great end user experiences. And mobile's also given us access to a wealth of data that we can use to create those amazing experiences. But of course, with every opportunity, there comes some challenges. And so the middle part of our agenda is talking about the real struggles that companies and individuals face when it comes to the mobile opportunity. And we'll end with a detailed conversation around how data, analytics, and automation can help you win, serve, and retain your customers in their mobile moments, ending with 5 tips to get started. At the very end, we'll have a live Q&A session. We'll all come back on the line and moderate any questions that you send to me throughout the presentation. So if you do have questions at any point, you can send them to me with 2 channels, either through Twitter using hashtag #AppAnswers, or on the control panel right on your screen in the little box that says questions. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Raj to get us started. Raj, over to you.
Thanks, Jamie. So we all understand the importance of mobile, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but a few things to highlight. Waiting for my slide to change. While that happens, one of the things that we've found across our customer base is that mobile isn't only the fastest growing platform, but it's now surpassed the web. It also happens to be the platform with the most loyal users on it. So it's the channel that customers, companies need to get right. And what's driving all this? Well, 1 in 5 people in the world own a smartphone. Tablets have grown tremendously quickly as well. 1 in 17 people in the world own a tablet. So the web is now 25 years old and has grown really quickly, but apps are under 10 years old, really 7 years since the advent of the modern smartphone era and the app ecosystem. During most of this time, web grew very quickly. However, more recently, growth of websites has largely stalled. The number of total websites coming online is decreasing, but while that's happened, the popularity of apps has skyrocketed. More and more people are using apps. More and more people have access to apps. And importantly, apps are driving the majority of time spent in digital. What we saw last year is that time spent in digital for apps on mobile surpassed the web. Now, what are some of the reasons for this? Well, I just wanted to quickly talk about what an app is and what it does to transform the end user experience. So an app is the best way to take advantage of hardware like a mobile phone, which has limited resources on it, limited battery, because it's connected directly to the hardware of the device. What that means is that it has access to all the sensors that are on the device, including the graphics and other capabilities of the device to create that bi-directional, real-time, engaging experience that customers have grown to expect and love. And that experience is part of what's driven the success of apps. When you've got your desktop next to you and your phone next to you, often people will opt to engage with the services they love through their phone rather than the desktop. And apps have been so successful that they're no longer limited to just the mobile phone or a tablet. They've been so successful that websites are quickly becoming what we call appified. So they're moving towards single-page experiences, ability to access those same sensors, and even things like push notifications, which were born on mobile phones, are coming to websites. And so this fundamentally changes how companies need to think about how they engage users in a digital world. So with that, I will pass it over to Julie to talk more about engagement.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about how those shifts do change mobile customer engagement. So one of the things that we define here at Forrester is we talk about this notion of the mobile mind shift, and it's this expectations from consumers, right, ourselves, that I can get what I want in my immediate context and in my mobile moments of need. And this is something that we call the mobile mind shift. And if you wonder for a moment, well, just how many consumers in the U.S. is that? By our measurements today, 21% of consumers in the U.S. have this set of shifted expectations of anything, anywhere, anytime, and another 29% are in transition. So about half of consumers within the next year or so will have this set of shifted expectations and really expect that you're ingesting this context or information or data in real time to really understand their needs and deliver whatever it is that they need in that moment. If we think for a minute what has changed and how have consumer expectations changed, there's three core ways. The first way that consumers or our expectations have changed is around immediacy. So whether something goes on sale, my new hiking boots have shipped, or I'm even in a store and I'm standing there saying, well, do they have my size? You know, what's the price at the competitor? I expect to be able to get instant access to that information, right? I want to get, and and we've all become very impatient through this process. The second thing that we expect is simplicity. As consumers, when we get on mobile devices, we become very task-oriented, right? We want to get in, get something done, get back out. And so in some cases, we don't even want to get into those apps, right? So we expect push notifications that really anticipate what it is that we need in those moments. We expect curated content, and we expect to have a very task-oriented design flow that makes it very easy for us to get done whatever it is that we want to do. And finally, we expect context, or what some people call relevancy. So the deals that are nearby, relevancy based on past behavior, or things like time-sensitive notifications. When it comes to mobile, all three of these things, immediacy, simplicity, and context, add up to what we call convenience. And fundamentally, consumers don't adopt new products or services unless it's more convenient than what they were already doing, and they'll also drop an existing app or service if they find something to be more convenient. So the bar is very high in mobile. So let me give you just a quick example of what this looks like from the airline industry and how shifted expectations change how you engage with your customers. If we imagine this notion of a flight, if I were to open up my United Airlines or Delta app a couple of weeks ahead of the flight, then maybe I need to book a ticket or change a reservation. 2 days before the flight, though, I'm changing a seat or requesting an upgrade. And 2 hours before a flight, I'm checking in, checking the gate, you know, can I get access to the lounge, and maybe what time is the plane leaving or the plane coming in. So the point is that based on my context as a user, which in this case is time relative to an event, which is the flight, my needs change and my motivation changes. And so companies really need to think about how they're going to use information or data or insights like this to serve up exactly what I need in that moment, because I have these expectations of immediate and simplicity and context, and I expect it to be right there. And this continues to change whether I get on the flight, 2 hours, 2 days, or 2 weeks past the flight. I still expect it to be very fast and convenient to get what I need in exactly that moment when I pick up my phone. So at Forrester, we call these mobile moments. They're a point in time and space when somebody pulls out a mobile device to get me what he or she wants immediately and in context. And we talk about mobile moments being the next battleground to win, serve, and retain your customers. Mobile moments happen for a lot of reasons. You know, I could, as a consumer, click on an ad. I may click on an email that opens up a mobile website. I may be in a store browsing products or viewing ratings and reviews. I may even purchase something on a mobile phone. Could be a flash sale. Could just be that I'm commuting to work and I need to buy something or want to buy something. It could be around products, right? Setup instructions or tutorials, customer service, or even loyalty. So mobile moments aren't just about marketing or trying to get consumers to buy something. Mobile moments play a very important role throughout the entire customer journey, and mobile moments become even more important lower on in the funnel, so to speak, once somebody already is a customer, because then you have even more data and information and insights that help you serve those customers better in those mobile moments. The second thing about mobile moments is they have a lot of what I would call form factors today. So sometimes mobile moments are as simple as push notifications that come from Apple Wallet, or they could come from, you know, some kind of an advertiser. In this case, the Weather Channel that's been sending me SMS messages for, I don't know, it seems like years and years now, maybe a decade, is finally stopping. You know, they could be SMS messages. They could be SMS or MMS, as this one is from Domino's, promoting how easy it is to order from different channels on the mobile device. It could be within apps. It could be in-app notifications. It may be the mobile web, or it could even be interactive notifications that allow me to do a quick reply or archive directly within the message. So mobile moments have a lot of different formats, and this isn't even a complete list. So if we think about our mobile phones, we actually either glance, you know, and we think about mobile phones. So let me first say, you know, we talked about this need to win, serve, and retain your customers in these mobile moments, because this is the next battleground, right? This is where your customers expect to be served. And if we think about our mobile devices, we pick up our mobile phones 150 to 200 times a day. This is, you know, the same numbers. These are from Mary Meeker and the ones that she presented, I think, about maybe 2 years ago now. And so if you think about the idea that your customers glance at or pick up their mobile phones 100 to 200 times a day, and these mobile moments, right, happen anywhere and all throughout the entire customer journey, that's a lot of mobile moments. And if we were to take a step back for a moment and even do what I would call some fairly simple math and think about it, even 150 mobile moments a day times roughly 200 million consumers in the US that have a smartphone, that's 30 billion mobile moments a day. 30 billion, right? And so you start to think about, am I ready to serve my customers in these 30 billion mobile moments a day? And, you know, the answer is probably not, right? And this is why, you know, we start to talk about, you know, topics like big data and insights and using solutions to automate the delivery in these mobile moments. And it's something that marketers really companies are struggling with today. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, why it's so difficult to serve your customers in their mobile moments. So one of the first things we know in terms of the use of data, you know, there's, you know, like I would tell you, you know, I spent a lot of time talking to clients and working with clients on their mobile strategies. And I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and there were, I think, you know, several meetings that I was having. Folks were talking about big data, and they were really talking about these scenarios of, you know, what would seem like Minority Report to a lot of us. You don't have to be able to execute a Minority Report to serve your customers in their mobile moments. And in fact, you know, I use this slide because only 1 in 4 companies that we've surveyed even use location to make services more relevant to consumers today. So we're really at the leading edge here of, you know, beginning to use context and information to better serve customers in their mobile moments. And even using just a couple of pieces of data or context can make the experiences better than average. So there's 3 core ways that companies are falling short today in terms of winning in customers' mobile moments. So the first challenge that a lot of companies have, and I would say especially marketers have, is they're porting existing engagement strategies from direct mail to the desktop. In fact, 44% of marketers today still fall within what we call the shrink and squeeze category, stage of mobile maturity, where they're simply taking the tactics and the web and the content that they used on the PC, and they're just trying to shrink it down onto a smaller screen. This even includes setting a communication strategy for mobile moments that's built on pre-built messages, planned months or weeks in advance, the batches of customers within a segment created from historical CRM data, right? And we've all been on the receiving ends of these messages where you're receiving some kind of a coupon or a discount on the first of the month, or, you know, every Monday, if you will. So this doesn't really work, right? And neither does the batch approach to mobile engagement account for real-time data to deliver on moments, and it doesn't really help with customer identification when a consumer walks into a store, when a coupon is about to expire. So this, falls short on a lot of different dimensions. The second way that marketers fall short today is that they lose the contextual insights in a portfolio of mobile point solutions, right? So when we think about understanding the mobile moment, it really requires an understanding of all of the customer brand touch points. And marketers that are in the mobile first phase only tend to rely on mobile point solutions that aren't really integrated well with the rest of their business. And so the challenge here is this approach doesn't really offer a view across the customer life cycle or even a view across the different channels like in-store, online, on mobile. And with mobiles crossing over throughout the entire organization and following consumers in stores, a messaging strategy based just on mobile behavior or media touch points and not really incorporating the customer service analytics or offline touch points isn't really going to deliver. And then the final challenge that marketers have is that they fail to plan across business units. So the third stage of maturity that we talk about at Forrester is something that we call using mobile to help transform your customer experience. And this is where companies really stop thinking about mobile on its own, but really mobile as more holistically as an enabler of their broader set of business objectives. Today, only about 14% of companies that we've surveyed have this in their sights to deliver on mobile moments in this way, but only 4% have the ability to execute. And then only 1% are even thinking about, well, how do we take this a step further and even use mobile to transform our business models? Most firms today are really set up with functional groups with an agenda focused on a single sliver of the journey through planned campaigns or outreach. But today, we really have to think about, you have to collaborate to support and engage customers across the entire journey. One of the cases that this stands out the most is in retail, because you tend to have an e-commerce team and then you have an in-store team. And while the e-commerce team may be focused on driving online sales like m-commerce, the bigger opportunity, of course, is to influence sales. So, taking tactics that are designed for online and trying to port them to mobile falls short for a lot of companies today. Sorry, that went a little bit fast. Let me see if I can go back. All right. The other thing that we know about marketers today is very few of them are using mobile messaging. Certainly SMS over on the right-hand side has been around the longest. That's the most mature of the technologies. It was created back in 1992, so it's been around for more than 20 years. 39% of companies that we surveyed are using SMS, 23% are using push notifications, and then only 12% are using interactive push notifications today. So the level of maturity and also doing this proactive engagement in these mobile moments is pretty limited today. The other thing that we know is that mobile moments are getting more complex. All right. So the challenges are only getting harder, because one of the things certainly is that mobile moments are moving beyond phones to products and what I call into the ether. Right now, you may get a notification on your phone, but going forward, things like your refrigerator, your crock pot at home, your air filter, your thermostat, they're all going to have mobile moments and communicate with you to help you get better use of those products. We talk about this notion of shrinking from what we call mobile moments into micro moments. So these are things like notifications or audio signals or some kind of a haptic signal that gives you just some small bit of information that allows you to take action, whether it's a sale starting, knowing that a child is home from school, a package or your Uber ride is 10 minutes, well, not 10 minutes in the case of Uber, maybe it's 2 minutes away and you need to go downstairs, right? A lot of these interactions are very small today. The third is that we know that mobile moments will be dynamically assembled, inserted into third-party platforms, what we refer to as borrowing mobile moments at Forrester, but not all of these mobile moments are going to be on your own platform. They may be in third-party platforms like a Facebook or a TripIt or even a United Airlines. And then finally, they'll disappear into virtual agents. So the form factor and where these mobile moments will be is only going to become more diverse. So when we think about mobile marketing and what it was and what it is now, there's a number of things that have changed. I'm just going to build out this slide here quickly in terms of then and now, right? So if we think about how we used to do, who to target online, we did things with customer segmentation, right? So we used CRM solutions to identify groups of customers based on core demographics and historical interactions. Today with mobile, we're not targeting segments, but we're actually targeting individual consumers based on their mobile behavior and real-time context to send them contextual, individual, personalized messages. When we think about targeting and what format to send the content in, I think if you look before, companies did what we call prefabricated messages, so batch email, desktop ads. Today we're doing more personalized content through optimal touch points, right? So we're dynamically optimizing the content, time of day, the right message for Julie, and how that goes. When we talk about when to engage in the schedules, right? Typically, campaigns would be set up well in advance to support a sale, but today we're using push-based notifications that are triggered based on real-time data or context, like a prescription is ready or I've just walked into a store. In terms of where to engage, right? It could be any location. It didn't matter online when you sent the email because it just got to the consumer. They could have been at home, they could have been at work, but now we're trying to engage the consumer, in their mobile moments, when they walk into a store, when they're within 100 feet of a bank, when they're within a mile of the airport terminal. And then you also talk about, well, why are you sending some of these messages? I think a lot of them were, really driven by companies wanting to sell something and to do advertising, and we've really shifted here where we're thinking about, well, when we engage consumers, we should offer them something and offer them something like utility. So what we did online and the best practices online are really very different from what's going to work in mobile. But a lot of marketers, and I would tell you still, easily, I think our number is 44%, but it could even be higher, are really thinking about mobile in the same ways that they were using the web. And they're really failing to think about, how do I use real-time data? How do I use context to know where somebody is, understand their behaviors, target them when they're walking into a store, just before they go to bed, when they're on a morning commute, when it's the best time for them, and really personalizing those messages. So if you're feeling like you've got a big task in front of you, I sometimes use this analogy of looking out over a canyon. There are no clear roads, there are no clear signs, and if you do feel that way, you're in good company, because only 4% of companies that we've surveyed today have the talent and the budget and the organization in place to really go out and serve customers in their mobile moments, right? They don't have the technology and the platforms to ingest data, understand real-time context, let alone proactively push out notifications to engage consumers in just the right moment. And you saw from a few slides back that even the use of push notifications was just about 23%. So now that we've talked through what some of the big opportunities are and what the challenges are, let's talk more about how you can use data, analytics, and automation to help you win, serve, and retain your customers in these mobile moments. And I know that I'm just introducing the idea of automation now, but I alluded to it earlier when I talked about that 30 billion mobile moments per day. When you think about trying to serve or engage consumers in that many moments a day, right, the idea of doing that manually would be mind-boggling. And so you really have to think about, how do I use automation solutions to do that? So at Forrester, we call mobile automation. These are a set of marketing technologies that use real-time and contextual insights to proactively engage with known users in the appropriate mobile moment across the customer lifecycle via a mobile device. And let me break down the process for you here for a minute. So at Forrester, we talk about this notion of using the IDEA framework, which stands for identifying the mobile moment, designing the engagement, engineering your platform's processes and people, and then using analytics to drive ongoing and continuous improvement. And so this is what these platforms tend to look like. On the one hand, you have to have a lot of inputs that are both data and content, right? And so here we talk about the platform ingests content to deliver data sources. Data types might include CRM, mobile app analytics, which are the behavior in the app. I've downloaded the app, I've opened the app, I've put a product into a shopping basket in the app, and certainly real-time data. The next thing that you have to do with these platforms is identify these mobile moments, and you have to identify the audience as well. So these platforms will help you analyze raw data to identify audience segments and events that trigger the right mobile moments. You have to design the engagement, right? Decisioning and assembly. So the platforms will help you assemble the right content to deliver the identified audience in the identified mobile moments. Engineer, right? So this is the interaction delivery where you're not only delivering the content, but you're also choosing a technology here, what we call a channel. Is a push notification, an email, a display ad, an interactive notification. What's the best way to engage the customer in that mobile moment? And then finally, there's a lot of analysis that has to take place here around performance measurement and optimization. And so these platforms provide analytics into app and or customer lifecycle and campaign performance that help you tweak and better understand how to engage your customers, when it's most effective to engage your customers, and tweak things like personalization and language. So let me just spend a couple more minutes talking about what this looks like. So in any kind of design, when you're thinking about, I want to engage my customers in the mobile moments, and even when I want to do so proactively, the first place that you really start is with the customer and what we call big data. So one of the most common inputs to these solutions is your existing CRM solution. When we start to think about mobile, that doesn't mean that we throw everything away that we know about the web, but it's more like it's about changing the way that we do things and taking advantage of what mobile offers to us. So most of these solutions are going to offer the ability to create user profiles with a combination of existing information from your CRM solutions, as well as things like point of sale, third-party information made available by customers. Some of the techniques, not to go into the technical details, could be APIs, CSV uploads, and more. Some of you may say, well, I don't know who my customers are, so that's a different kind of a challenge for me. But what these companies will also do, and these solutions will also do, is they will allow you to create an anonymous identity or number for a user, so to speak, and still follow them and provide relevant information and content and services to them in real time, even before they know exactly who that is. And so, a lot of these solutions will build a profile of user behavior for a device until the user's credential when they log in when they either create an account, use email like Gmail, or use Facebook to log in, and then it creates a unifying way of bringing all of the information together, so to speak. So the first thing you really have to think about is, how do I ingest this consumer data, or even big data that helps me better understand like who I'm targeting. The next step is to use data analytics and insights to define who the audience is. We talked just a moment ago about how traditional audience segmentation was based on but audience is different now. So now we're not only thinking about the audience, but we're also thinking about the audience along with the information that you have about how they've engaged within the app. Have they downloaded the app but not used it in 2 days? Have they downloaded the app but maybe not set up an account? Have they, used the app to do shopping, but maybe they haven't, they put something into a basket but they haven't made a payment? Could be the same with, booking a ticket or transferring money. Oops, sorry, that went a little bit fast. But move forward from there. Okay. And then what these platforms will do is, once you've created some of those rules and you've done some of that design work, they'll actually automate the process of identifying and sorting the users into the audience segments as they come about. Because again, this isn't about segments, this is really about individuals. And the app usage profiles automate the creation of the segments based on frequency or even last use of a mobile app. There's a lot of different moving parts here if you have the data. The other thing that works here too is the combination of this user-generated rules and templates, and some of these I've alluded to, create solutions suggestions from the solution based on past learnings to really generate a list of users to target with the message. And so you begin to see here how this combination of machine learning and in-app analytics really assist, because there's no possible way. It'd be very, very hard for a marketer to think of what are all these scenarios, and you really have to rely on some of the solutions, so to speak, not only to allow you to identify the users and tag them, but also to understand, based on the learnings that the vendors have from working with so many different clients, what works and what doesn't work. When's the best window to re-engage with the consumer who's downloaded the app, for example, but hasn't engaged with the app since. The other thing that you have to think about when we're talking about the use of real-time context within, identifying these mobile moments, right? When we identify a mobile moment, right, there's who you're targeting, which is the consumer and the audience. Then there's the context. What are my motivations? What are my needs? And then what do you know about my situation? And so a lot of these tools, really all of these tools, offer a web-based interface to allow users to create rules to define the mobile moments and their associated context. And it could be any combination of behavior, location, or events. For example, I went into Starbucks this morning. I bought an iced tea, and they sent me a notification letting me know what my amount spent was, what the remaining balance was on my car, and asked me whether or not I wanted to tip, right? That's an example of setting up rules for mobile moments. So when we think about this notion of data, because there's a lot of focus there on the kinds of data that you need, there are really three core types of contextual data that you need to ingest in real time. So on the upper left-hand side is what we call situational data. So this is my location, time of day, knowing them at home or work. And it could also include data from a lot of sensors, from the Internet of Things, whether it's a heart rate monitor or blood pressure. It could also come from social media. When we talk about the second kind of data, which is behavior and preferences, that's more traditional to what we have from the web, where it's either my purchase history or observed behavior on the device. And then finally, emotions are a new and emerging type of context where my mood or how I'm feeling can either be inferred from my logistics or even the tone of my voice. So there's a lot of different kinds of data that come into play here when we talk about mobile. And then finally, as you go through all of these steps to identify these mobile moments, you're designing the engagement, which means, helping choose technologies. Is it a push notification or an app? You're assembling the campaign, so to speak, pushing it out. Then you have to analyze to improve the performance and feed into future campaign design. So when we get to the far right-hand side here, and we've gone through all of this, you have to have analytics that are ingesting this data and generating insights. And there's a couple different kinds of analytics here. So one is the in-app analytics that help you understand the customer journey within the app and manage that journey within the app. And there's a lot that goes into that that's very sophisticated. Whether you want to understand how to improve the app, you want to understand when to better time those interactive or proactive notifications, in-app analytics can help you do that. But then there's also the campaign analytics. So when you first launch a campaign, you want to test it, do multivariate testing, do A/B testing, see what works, when works, and what works for Julie. What's the best time of day to send a message to Julie? Is it better to send Julie an email during the day in a push notification when she's commuting in the morning or the evening? But all of these solutions will offer analytics that help you optimize the campaigns. And so finally, as we kind of summarize, right, we step away from the technology for a moment and we really think conceptually about what you're trying to do here. One of the first things, especially when we talk about push notifications and apps specifically that offer these superior experiences, is the first thing that you really need to do as you're building up these skills over time is, you first have to drive the download of the app. Then you have to get your consumers to opt in for messaging and hopefully get them to opt in for, say, sharing location. You have to use in-app analytics to really understand the behavior of your customers. Then you have to serve them, right, with notifications and relevant content. You have to learn using the data that you get back in the analytics. How well did that work? How effective was it? Did my customer like that? You have to build trust by offering them utility and not just advertising. And then this becomes very iterative. The more your customers engage, the more you understand them better, the more relevant you can be to them in their mobile moments. You can generate deeper insights, you can build more trust, and this becomes a very virtual circle. And in fact, in some companies you've seen where they've had people opt in for push notifications. It might even be months, if not a year or two, before they start using push notifications because they're really primarily thinking about being in the learning phase. So with that, in an explanation of how you think about it conceptually, let me turn things back to Raj.
Thanks, Julie. So I wanted to just give you some takeaways and tips on what you can do with data to drive better engagement. But before I get there, I want to talk about the way things used to be done. So in the world where web was the primary place where you engage with your users digitally, email was a channel the delivery channel by which you sent them messages and tried to drive different behaviors. Web teams that included analysts and others were very separate from your email teams, which were engagement marketers that were using a very different technology to try to deliver emails and messages to your users. Now, what's happened, though, in apps is that the delivery channel is now one and the same as the product. So the place where users go to gain their services, get their content, view their products, is also now where they receive their messages, right? Through things like in-app messages, push notifications. that is now an integrated and very tight experience. And that's led to a lot of changes. It means that it's often hard to distinguish, well, what's kind of marketing, the typical email marketing stuff, versus what's a part of the product. To give you a few examples, when you have a news or sports or a weather app sending you push notifications to give you breaking alerts, well, is that really marketing or is that part of the product? When you have e-commerce apps giving you outbid notifications or delivery alerts, again, that goes beyond what people typically think of marketing, and email being used as a form of marketing, to instead be another way to enhance the product and engage users at a deeper level. What this change has meant is taking us to tip number one, that product and marketing teams absolutely need to collaborate more, because it's hard to distinguish the difference between what's marketing and what's product. We're seeing that across our customer base, where a lot of teams are being organized together as product and marketing functions, which will sometimes end up under a market umbrella or a product umbrella. But the point is that they're being forced to work together, and in many cases being forced to and encouraged to use the same technology, so that the data and the way that you engage users is more seamless. So the second tip that we wanted to share from our experience is that you need to get to know your audience. And ultimately, everything that you do today to build profiles and insight about your users and then engage them through push notifications and other types of marketing automation, well, those are the exact same things that you're eventually going to use that same insight to create a more personalized and engaging end user experience. Where is the market going? We believe that today the primary means to engage a personalized experience for a user through notifications and messages, but there's no reason that content and even UI and experiences aren't going to change based on who a user is and what's most likely to appeal to them. And so to Julie's point, you need to build these skills over time, and you need to start today by using the channels that are readily available in order to keep up with competitors down the road. The third tip is you can't think about the life cycle in silos. You need to think about the life cycle from acquiring a user through engaging and growing a user to ultimately retaining them as one complete system. An example of this is in the mobile world. Attribution of where your users came from is really difficult. It's easy in the web. You've got a refer string in your URL, but the App Store acts as a brick wall of information. So it's critical to figure out ways that you can take that acquisition source and other information and integrate it not just to the download level, but integrate it right through to the long-term value of a user and LTV of a user. And so thinking about this entire life cycle as a holistic view of the user is critical. The fourth tip is that you've got to think about the experience beyond just your phone. And Julie talked about the micro moments that you're going to experience with watch and other things. But just to give you an example of how some of our customers will think about providing this experience beyond a phone. Well, if you're delivering content, maybe you've got a set-top box app, and really that is just another app. It's another way to engage your users. Well, when you turn that off and you've got the app downloaded on your phone and you walk out your door, send the user a push message and ask them if they'd like to continue to view their content while they're walking. That kind of experience keeps a user engaged and more likely to come back to your brand. And finally, the fifth tip that I wanted to share was that the only way you're really going to take advantage of all of these capabilities and the complexity of the apps is to use all the data that you have to truly personalize the end user experience. But while you do that, every time you engage a user, you need to measure that, because every time you can measure that and measure that on things like conversions as well as impact on retention, it gives you an opportunity to optimize how you're doing things. So bringing the two pieces together, analytics and your engagement capabilities, is fundamentally critical. We believe that in the fast-changing app space today, the only way to truly accomplish that is to have a solution that has those pieces fundamentally integrated. And so to tell you a little bit about Localytics, we were born as an integrated solution to help you gain insights about your users and then leverage that insight to deliver very personalized and relevant interactions across all the various mobile and app channels. But for us, the important part has always been that we have the ability to measure the impact of every one of those engagements or mobile moments on key metrics like conversions, but also to understand the impact on retention so you can truly optimize what you're doing and automate your marketing and engagement efforts. So just to build this one out, we've been in the app space since its birth, since 2008. We started addressing the needs of the space through helping companies really deeply understand who their users were, creating that cross-platform view of their end users. We added in-app messaging in 2012, before that concept even existed, and quickly followed that with push notifications, more recently email, and remarketing, which is an amazing way to reach your users when they're maybe disengaged with your app and maybe when they're in the Facebook stream or other places. As the app space grew, we understood that companies needed a tremendous view, as Julie talked about, not just of segments, but of individuals. And so creating profiles or in the CRM of your users where you can use that data to really drive personalized, relevant engagement was critical, and that's something that we built out in 2013. About a year and a half ago, we focused on automation as the app space gained maturity and companies were doing, not just a couple of dozen campaigns at a time, but maybe hundreds of campaigns at a time. Automation became absolutely critical. And more recently, toward the beginning of this year, we realized that we've got this amazing set of data, and by applying machine learning, we could make life for a marketer or a product manager far easier. For example, one of the ways that we leverage machine learning or prediction is to surface groups of people who are at high risk of churn. And that allows a marketer or product manager to instantly go and start trying different things to bring the user back or keep them from disengaging. And our companies have seen tremendous, our customers have seen tremendous impact from those types of efforts. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, the path moves beyond messaging to personalizing the broader end user experience. In order to do that effectively, you need to start today to build a profile and an understanding of your users and deliver personalized and relevant engagement through the channels that are available to you. So with that, I'll just quickly say many of the smartest marketers in the world across major verticals already trust Localytics, and we'd love to take questions in the few minutes that we have remaining.
Great. Thank you, Raj and Julie, for that incredibly informative session. So we have a couple of questions already, but if you haven't submitted them, just a reminder that you can either send them to us through Twitter with #AppAnswers or directly through the control panel through the little box that says questions. To start, I'm actually going to answer the first one. We've received a few questions about recording of the webinar, and yes, we are recording and we will be sharing that afterwards. By the end of the week, you should receive that. So our first question, Raj, this might be a good one for you. Julie, you might have some thoughts on it as well. What are the main metrics you recommend to someone who is launching and first starting their business?
Sure. So I'll start. I think a lot of people, when they're first launching, will focus on downloads. And, it probably isn't a surprise to most people today. You need to get well beyond downloads. You need to understand how many active users you have. So thinking about monthly active users and daily active users is critical. Looking at your cohorts to understand how many people are coming back after 3 days, 7 days, 30 days, and benchmarking that to what others in the industry are doing are critical. So you understand whether you're providing a truly engaging experience and making the most of those hard-won users, or whether you're potentially wasting some of that effort and need to get back to thinking about your onboarding experience, your key parts of your app that might need improvement. Julie, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because it's a progression. When you first start, it is about adoption. Then, as Raj said, it's about engagement. But then once you get past engagement, you really need to shift your focus to your business objectives, which may be improving customer satisfaction in the near term. But eventually, what are the business results? Are we either eliminating costs by eliminating calls into the call center, or are we generating that new revenue? So it's a progression. It's an evolution.
Great. So our next question, from a strategic perspective, how have you seen B2B marketers use mobile engagement? What is a business case for B2B marketers to use it?
Yeah, so, when we talk about mobile devices are always tied to an individual, and I know we use the word user or consumer a bit universally here. So, there's two answers to this question. So the first would be is that I were a B2B marketer, I would still think about the individuals with whom I engage. I would map out their journeys and how what are the pain points with their journey in terms of how I engage with them, whether it's around marketing or it's the sales process or it's the customer service process. And I would start to think about, where are those pain points? Where can mobile play a role? And what are the most important mobile moments for if I call them like business customers, because they're still individuals with smartphones at the end of the day. The second thing that will happen in more of a B2B scenario is these mobile moments will go beyond the phone to, include machinery, right? And so whether it's shipping products with warning signs, letting me know when the oil is low, letting me know when a machine may need maintenance soon, will all be part of kind of more what I call the broader, B2B mobile moments.
That makes sense. Raj, this next one's for you. Does Localytics only support mobile apps, or does it also support web apps?
So Localytics absolutely supports web apps. Just to back up a little bit on that, the way that we think about the world is that the concept of an app is certainly not restricted to mobile. It was a place where apps took off because, as we mentioned at the beginning, apps provide a much stronger end-user experience because they're deeply connected into the different APIs of the device. They can store data locally. They keep you away from having to do page-to-page interactions, instead provide engagements and more compelling experiences. And so because these have been so successful in the mobile and the tablet concept, we're seeing our customers very quickly go back to their websites and rethink them in the form of an app. And that means, creating those single-page experiences and thinking more about engagement rather than things like page views. And when you do that, a lot of companies find that an app-first approach, like we offer, like Localytics offers, is a better fit for their websites, or how they might think of them as web apps these days, than their more traditional approaches. And this applies to the analytics or the understanding, but it also applies to how you engage users. So once again, push notifications are something that are coming to the browser and are an amazing way to create a real-time conversation with your end user and create ultimately a better end user experience.
Thanks. So we have quite a few questions left. We'll try to get through as many of them as possible, but if for some reason we don't, we'll certainly follow up with answers afterwards. I do want to be respectful of time. This next question either of you can answer. What are the core aspects of customer centricity that need to be automated in order to be ahead of the pack?
Yeah, so I think, we talk about this customer centricity, I go back to this notion of mobile moments, 30 billion mobile moments. That's where, there's no way to proactively engage your customers and push out just the information that they need without using some kind of automation. In the example, maybe whether it's, I have a prescription that's ready to be picked up, and the pharmacy lets me know when I'm either in the store, and that could go the other way as well. But things like that can't happen without automation, because it's really about this utility and value to the customer first, and what's important and what's valuable to the customer first.
Great. Next question. Are you seeing traction on the omni-channel story? What % is still mobile-centric versus web?
So omni-channel, I would tell you, is still, there's again, I'm going to use the word evolution again. When a lot of companies start to use tools like this, it tends to come from a mobile team, a mobile product manager, and someone with a limited set of metrics around improving in-app performance, improving in-app revenue, improving in-app engagement. So those things tend to start with the in-app experience. And then once companies, product managers, the business professionals, marketers become more sophisticated, they start mapping out the entire customer journey and start thinking about, well, how can mobile play a role in improving my overall customer experience or my overall business results? But our number on the percentage of companies that are in that category today is about 14%. If you narrow the definition down and say, hey, well, what if we were to, push out a coupon or something to somebody in a store or in the airport, then, you could bring in another 40-45% of companies into that number. But those are pretty, they're what I would call single dimension, like customer in store. They're not multi-dimensional customer, elements that you're patching together. It's an evolution. Very few companies are sophisticated with the omni-channel and use of mobile.
Great. So Raj, another question for you. Interfacing data to software will be a big challenge. How is Localytics trying to achieve that?
Interfacing data to software?
Yes.
So ultimately, the insights that you're gaining about a user in the past would be limited to certain number of, say, attributes about a user, but because of how many mobile moments and other moments are happening, you can't limit yourself to capturing a few attributes of a user. You need to be able to capture an infinite amount of data about a user, and then the software, which I think about as the engagement layer, needs to be able to access the right piece of data, the right insight at the right time. And once upon a time that kind of wasn't possible because the price of computing and storage and the technologies available didn't support you to collect and manage all this granular information, so therefore you couldn't access it. But that's changed dramatically, and now by bringing that engagement layer together with the data layer and making sure those are tightly integrated, we can enable a marketer to create those rules, leverage machine learning to say, all right, well, if a user looks like this, let's try this. And ultimately, by connecting these two, it can be very iterative, and you can apply machine learning to this so that every engagement is an opportunity to learn what's working and what's not. So when you find something that's maybe not having the desired impact either on conversions or on retention, well, let's change it up and let's iterate on that. When you find something that's working, let's start doing more of it.
Great. And with that, it's 2 o'clock on the dot, and that is the end of our 60 minutes. If we did not get to your questions, we will follow up via email to answer them. Thank you so much, Raj and Julie, for joining us today. And thank you to our attendees who are on the line. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.